Thursday, and welcome to another episode of Hornets Daily, your one-stop shop for all things Charlotte Hornets. As always, we're presented by the good people over at FanArc, and I'm your host, Vance Ballard, but you know by now you can call me VB. Want to thank everybody for joining us out there, watching along with us. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comment section. You know we like watching you guys interact, hearing some of your thoughts on what's going on the show, and when we get the chance to interact with you guys down in the comment section as we continue to grow and build this Hornets Daily family here on the program. It is a Thursday in September. It is a slower period in the NBA. We're building towards training camp. We're building towards the preseason. The regular season not that far away now, but it is still one of the slower times here in the league. That does not mean, however, there's not some stuff buzzing around in the Queen City. We've got a few things on the docket for today. As you know, the rumor mill never sleeps. It does not rest. We've got a very interesting hypothetical floating around today, one I'll be up front with I don't really agree with, but we'll discuss it on the program. Anyway, Trey Mann has been getting some love throughout the Hornets organization. Coach Charles Lee had some high praise for him in an interview with Roderick Boone from the Charlotte Observer. I'll talk a little bit about Trey's potential role this season going forward and how he fits into the rotation, what Charles Lee may have to do to get him onto the floor in the most convenient spot. Con Knipple has received a very interesting comparison when it comes to how good he can actually be in this league. We'll discuss that today as well. And then we'll wrap up the show. You know, it wouldn't be an episode of Hornets Daily if we didn't at least mention LaMelo Ball. We'll talk about him as well as Brandon Miller, who has the higher ceiling between the Hornets' two potential stars. We'll discuss that. That's a question I want to hear you guys answer in the chat today, but that's how we'll wrap the program up as well. We know that we don't do beating around the bush here on Hornets Daily. We like to dive head first into the program. We do that every day, and that's exactly what we're going to do here today. Now, it's not often that we start the program off at the rumor mill. Usually that's topic 2 or 3 somewhere down the line. But this one today is, I find it to be kind of egregious, if I'm being honest. I think it's a little bit insane. I disagree strongly with it, but we'll talk about it anyway. We have made mention of this name a couple times this summer. This is a differently set up hypothetical, but we've talked about the potential or the hypothetical of the Hornets adding Zion Williamson this summer. If you've watched along, you know I wasn't really in favor of it the first couple times we talked about it, and I'm even less in favor of it now. And let me tell you why. Zach Buckley over at Bleacher Report has thrown his hypothetical for Zion into the mix here. The Hornets would receive in this deal only Zion Williamson. That's all they get back from the Pelicans, but they send off, so the Pelicans would receive Miles Bridges, Tidjane Salaün, Liam McNeely, a 2028 and a 2029 first-round pick, as well as a second-rounder to go along with that, and that is where you lose me right there. As I've said, if you've watched previous shows, if you've followed along with us this summer, you know when Zion's name comes up, I'm not really adamant about adding him to the Hornets roster. I just don't think he fills the correct needs or fits the voids that the Hornets have right now. As electric of a player he might be, the Hornets kind of already have a butts in seats type of guy with LaMelo Ball, and that really I feel like is Zion's best feature. At least that's what he's proven to me in the NBA. He too struggles with staying on the floor. There's less of a reason to add a guy like that to this Hornets roster that's already got its own health concerns with the stars. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, both. LaMelo, we know his injury history. Brandon Miller's still trying to come back and get 100% healthy before the season starts. I just don't think it would be a real benefit to add Zion to this team other than just being exciting, bringing some fans in as the potential for an electric moment is always there. It's just so is the potential for Zion to miss months at a time. I also don't think he solves even if he is healthy, even if he comes in and plays, I don't really think he solves the big man issue that he would be acquired to fix. I know he's better on defense than what we have now, but he's he's just as good, in my opinion, of a rebounder as Musa is. Musa is going to take steps forward on the defensive end, and the potential for him to be as good on offense may not be there like Zion is, but I think the playmaking ability, the skills that Musa can develop are they're good enough to not give up what this haul would require for Zion, because like I said, I think that give up, that haul, what they would require in that hypothetical is just absolutely insane. Giving up Liam McNeely right now after the Hornets traded up to go acquire him in the draft just doesn't feel like the thing they're going to do to me. He seems to have a lot of promise. There's a lot of hype and a lot of excitement about him this summer, so I think he is probably not a movable piece right now for the Hornets, especially not for someone like Zion. I don't think Tidjane Salaün is worth trading in this deal as well. Adding Miles and 2 first-rounders to go along with it almost makes this laughable, in my opinion. I think it's an egregious trade. It's way too much to give up for a guy who we can't trust to be on the floor for the entire season when we already have one of those leading the team at the moment. It's too risky. It doesn't feel like it is the correct acquisition. I just don't think that giving up that kind of haul, giving up players with promise, players with potential like Liam McNeely and Tidjane Salaün. I know Tidjane kind of underperformed last year, but he was drafted to be a developmental piece. He was drafted to be a longer-term guy, and he is showing signs of developing and coming along the right way in the Summer League and this offseason as well. So I just don't think that this trade is worth it. I think it's a little bit asinine. It's a little bit too much. It asks too much of the Hornets in giving up those guys. I know Miles Bridges is the only real trade piece that we've talked about in that whole scenario, so moving on from him wouldn't be that wild. But against Tidjane Salaün, Liam McNeely, in my opinion, just not two guys that the Hornets need to trade right now, especially for someone who is as unproven or as unpredictable in terms of being on the court as Zion is. Someone else who's coming off injury, another guy who is comes with a little bit of unpredictability just because he didn't stay healthy last year as well, is Trey Mann. The Hornets have extended Trey Mann with a 3-year, $24 million contract. He earned that, though. There's no denying that. Before he went out with his back injury last year, Trey Mann was showing signs. He was working his way into conversations of being the potential sixth man of the year. He may not have won the award, but he was certainly sneaking into talks about it early in the season before going down. He was averaging double digits scoring coming off the bench. He looked like someone the Hornets could really lean on to lead and benefit the second unit when they're on the floor, keep that production up. His play not only caught the attention of the front office to sign him to that extension, it also caught the attention of Coach Charles Lee, who has been speaking very highly about Trey Mann this offseason. As I mentioned in the intro, he sat down and spoke with Rod Boone of the Charlotte Observer and was spoke very highly of Trey Mann, gave him a lot of praise, credited him for helping the Hornets get off to a hot start, is what Charles Lee said in the article, in the interview. And what I took away from that is that Charles Lee has every intention of applying Trey Mann back to the same type of role, or as similar as he can get to that type of role that he was having coming off the bench last year, kind of leading me to believe that he'll be the sixth man again, which would then lead me to believe that Collin Sexton would be the starter if that is the case. If not, though, how does Trey Mann fit in with Collin Sexton? What's his role going to be? Can they play on the floor together? That's the interesting question. If Con Knippel does move his way into the starting lineup, it then forces Collin Sexton and Trey Mann to both come off the bench and potentially have to play together quite a bit throughout the season, be on the floor at the same time. Charles Lee has a couple of options there, though. He could figure out how to stagger their minutes to where Sexton is on the floor predominantly, or where Trey Mann is on the floor, and the two don't spend a whole lot of time on the court together. Reason I bring all of this up, because playing them together comes with some risks, as you may know. Not offensively, both of these guys high-level scorers in the NBA. Both can play either guard position, so both can bring the ball up, both can pass, both can kind of run the floor, can command the offense on that end, so it wouldn't be the issue. The trouble, though, comes on the other end of the floor. Defensively, Collin Sexton and Trey Mann playing at the same time, it would be a disadvantage to the Hornets. They're both undersized guards. Collin Sexton not as undersized if you put him at the one and let him be the ball handler. He's not as undersized there, but neither of them are big when it comes to playing the two, and Trey Mann undersized as a guard overall. Neither of them are thought of as elite or really even good defenders at all, honestly. So that doesn't help either if both of them are on the floor together. Then that limits the Hornets' capabilities on defense, kind of puts them behind the eight ball at the guard position on that end of the floor. Now, if Charles Lee chooses to not to start Con early on in the season or really at all this season, and Colin Sexton stays in the starting lineup, this issue doesn't exist. It then allows for Con or Trey Mann to be the first one off the bench, and it allows for those two to play together and coexist a little more. They kind of mesh and counter each other and help each other out a little bit better than Colin Sexton and Trey Mann do. But that doesn't mean that is what Charles Lee is going to do. We know Con is expected to be a starter at some point, probably this season, and it could even be opening night. So that's going to make it very interesting to watch and see how Charles Lee plugs and plays all of these guys. What's he going to do with this roster? What's the adjustment period going to be like for him figuring out how to get these guys on which unit is going to be best playing together, who's going to mesh the most, who needs minutes here and there, and can he save Colin Sexton and Trey Mann on the floor together and play them together on the floor and figure out a way to not be handicapped on the defensive end? Or will it be Con Knippel who is coming off the bench with Trey Mann and making things a little bit easier as Colin Sexton gets a blow while Trey Mann comes onto the floor, and then this question or this issue is no more, and we don't have to really worry as much about Colin and Trey playing together. That's going to be very intriguing to watch, very interesting, a task I certainly think Charles Lee is up for, but it will be interesting to watch, especially early on in the season. Now, we mentioned the Con Knippel has received a very interesting comparison. We've talked a little bit about him today, the potential of him starting already. We all know the excitement and the expectations that surround the 4th overall pick in this year's draft. But the real question, something we've got to think about, is how good can he actually be? What's the peak for Con Knippel? How far can he go in the NBA? Ryan Stano over at Sports Illustrated gave his opinion on the matter this week, and he thinks that Con's ceiling is comparable to that of Klay Thompson, which I thought was very interesting, quite intriguing, because it's just not the first name I think of when I think of Con Knippel. It's not wrong by any means, and I think that everybody within the Hornets organization, around this fan base that has any interest or involvement with the Hornets, would be very, very pleased if Con Knippel turned out to be a Klay Thompson type of player, or if he turned into Klay Thompson, his type of game. We know a lot about Klay Thompson shooting out in Golden State with Steph Curry, two of the best shooters in the league. We know Klay was right there at the top as well. Prior to his injuries that have kind of plagued him over the recent years, Klay was a pretty far above average defender in the league. He was very good on ball. He was great off ball at stopping guys, preventing them from getting to their spots. He could guard up at the 3 if need be, because he's got a little bit more size to him, but he was very good at guarding his position on defense as well. I think already, fortunately for Knippel, he comes into this with the advantage over Klay in terms of playmaking. I don't think when Klay was where Con is now, I don't think Klay was quite as good of a playmaker, and Con may be on the same level already as a playmaker in terms of his playmaking ability when compared to Klay Thompson. Now, let's slow it down a little bit, because I don't think, and you may be thinking, there's no way he can shoot like Klay Thompson, and I'm probably going to agree with you. I don't think Con Knippel is ever going to be talked about as the second best shooter in the NBA, or even rank up there as one of the best shooters in the league. He's going to be a good shooter. He's already a good shooter, and he can develop into getting better. But Klay Thompson was on a different level with his shooting ability, and I'm not just not certain or sold that Con is going to quite get there and reach those heights or that level. But I do think that Con has the ability to become as good of a defender as Klay Thompson was. He can utilize the knowledge and the viewpoint that Charles Lee has on defense, the ability he has to develop and teach guys from a coaching standpoint. He can pick that up. Khan's got plenty of time to develop and take steps forwards on the defensive end. So I do think it's not outrageous to think that that Khan could become the type of defender that Klay Thompson was with some time and development. That's what's exciting. And again, I think that he has that playmaking ability. He's got a higher basketball IQ overall than Klay Thompson. He's a little bit better with the ball in his hand, especially at this young age, at this starting point that Khan is at. He's just a little bit better with the ball in his hand and as an overall playmaker than Klay Thompson was. So I think he's got the advantage there. Now, of course, we don't realistically know exactly how good Khan can be. We all think we do. We all like to give expectations and be optimistic about that. But in my opinion, the best thing about him is that we do know what his floor is. We know how low he can go, and that's not very. His floor is pretty high. He comes in, from all things considered, an NBA-ready player already. I'm not certain he's ready to be thrust into the starting lineup, but we'll see about that. But Khan comes in, his game is very much NBA-ready at this point, and so we know his floor, which is in my opinion, equally as exciting, if not more exciting, than knowing his ceiling or his cap. That is, it's promising to know that it's not a basement level floor that Khan comes in to the league with. That will be positive for the Hornets going forward. It'll be important to get him progressing forwards and maybe reaching the levels of Klay Thompson, like that comparison from Ryan Stano at Sports Illustrated. That'll be interesting to watch and see how Khan continues to develop and how good he truly can be in the NBA. Two guys we're familiar with how good they can be in the NBA, or at least a little bit more. One of them guys, not a lot of sample size, but we do kind of have an understanding of them. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, the Hornets' two potential superstars, the two biggest names on this roster. And for all the bad that is actually said about Charlotte, it's all understandable. They earn it in some forms or fashion with the struggles that they've had. The Hornets, they do have two potential superstars on their roster, two very young potential superstars that this team can build around and develop around and help propel them forwards into that spot of being a contender in the Eastern Conference. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball are the two guys I'm talking about, which I'm sure you know. They both have the capability to be more than terrific in this league. They both have the capability to reach that next level and become superstars. They have the ball skills, the IQ, the passing ability. Both of them feature all of the assets necessary to become a superstar in this league. It's just going to be a matter of letting it happen, staying on the court, being healthy, and figuring that out. But the question for today, as I mentioned in the intro to the show, who has the higher ceiling of LaMelo Ball or Brandon Miller? Who has the greatest potential? Who's going to take that real leader role and become the guy for the Charlotte Hornets? I think this is a very interesting question because you could easily make the argument for both. I'm not sure either one would be wrong or right. I think, like I say, it's a closer discussion than you think. I think it could easily be argued that both of these guys could have a higher ceiling than the other, and that kind of depends on the night, depends on the month and how their game is going and the situation that the Hornets are in as well. Getting to LaMelo, he's a little bit older than Brandon Miller. He's not old by any means, but Brandon Miller is very young, and we know a little bit more about LaMelo at his best. We know what his A game looks like, what when he's playing at his peak, what that has the potential to look like, or at least we think we do a little bit more with LaMelo. However, if he, for lack of a better word, if he matures in his shot selection and kind of figures that out a little bit, which I think this roster and more spacing will help. I've said that a bunch. If he stays healthy and continues to progress on the defensive end of the floor, that's going to have a lot to do with his health as well. His ankles holding up. Can he take some steps forward on the defensive end? Then if all of those things take place, then honestly the ceiling may not even exist for LaMelo Ball. He may just projectile himself all the way into outer space and become that good in the NBA if he just kind of, like I say, matures his game just a little bit, and that comes with growth, with age and experience, all things LaMelo is continuing to do each year in the league. Now, Brandon Miller, I mentioned he's younger than LaMelo Ball, just 22 years old, and coming into year 3 now, didn't play very much last year with the wrist injury. Going to get back healthy, should be good to go for training camp, preseason, definitely the start of the regular season, according to Miller and the Hornets. So that'll be nice to get him back, because Brandon has absolutely 100% the potential to become an elite scorer in this league. He can score from the perimeter. He can shoot from the mid-range. He can get to the basket. He also possesses a deep bag of other offensive skills. He's a great passer. He can move without the ball. He just understands that offensive end of the floor quite well for someone who is only 22 years old. He's also got the advantage over LaMelo on the defensive end of the floor. He's a better defender than Ball is. He's fine at guarding guys his size. He can guard down if he needs to. He can even guard up at the 4 if circumstances do require it. Miller is capable on that end, and he seems to be getting better, and being around Charles Lee will only help him get better at defense as well. There's again, many arguments that can be made for both of these two guys to have the higher ceiling, and no matter which one you think has the higher ceiling, you have to admit that the Hornets are in a very good spot with having these two young guys at the anchor, at the root of their core, at the root of what they're trying to build and what the culture change they're trying to make. Having two guys to do that with definitely is advantageous to the Hornets, and it should help them, if not make the play-in or the playoff this year, propel themselves into doing that next year and going forward as the Hornets just continue to get better and this team grows and develops more and more. All of those things are going to be super exciting to watch. Going to be extremely interesting to see how the roster unfolds. Brandon Miller, LaMelo Ball, who has the higher ceiling? I'm not sure the answer to that question. Again, that's something I want to hear from you guys down in the chat. We'll discuss that tomorrow's show or Monday as well, depending on how we're feeling. But that is going to do it for today's program. Again, want to thank everybody for joining us out there, watching along with us. As always, if you haven't already, smash that subscribe button, leave a like and a comment down in the comments section. Answer that question. Let me know what you think about the ceilings for LaMelo Ball and Brandon Miller. How do you feel about that rumor mill trade we talked about at the beginning that, again, I want on the record to say I think is absolutely outrageous? I do not think the Hornets need to make that move. Let me know your thoughts as well, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for another episode